So I Can Do It With a Broken Heart has become a national theme song. Actually, I just say that kind of cheesy way, but it's actually been a archetype that we have dealt with, especially in the age of Capricorn. With Pluto rolling through Capricorn, we were learning to transform that. But what I have found more times than not, doing it with a broken heart means we're disassociating from our feelings, which means we are leaving our body. That's what disassociation is in the way that I'm going to describe it. So let's get to it. Stay tuned till the end because I have an offer for you to help you understand your patterns of maybe disassociating so you can get back into your body and live the life you want to live. Let's get to it. So what do I mean about disassociate from the body? So I'm going to use this example. So when I first had my, kind of awakening where I kind of left my, paradigm of what I believed the world was, what I believed about myself, and awakening is just an expansion, like that's Jupiterian energy, like, woo, I see so much more. And what we tend to do is be like, oh shoot, I see so much more. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. So what I really got into studying was MK Ultra. And I want to remind you on this channel, which by the way, welcome or welcome back, we don't go into these things to get triggered and emotionally reactive or try to fight a funk. We are literally using these things to expand our perception. So we talk about different logics so we can understand how we can not fall for the funk, right? We don't want to sit there and ruminate about MK Ultra. Yes, it happened. I'm not a conspiracy theorist here. CIA started a program where they used trauma to get people to disassociate from their body so they could program the body with words like racist, terrorist, a lot of ists. And then then we would get triggered. And so they were studying this and they were using electric shock therapy to cause trauma. They were doing everything to get the body what? To be automated by their emotions. So what was happening is they were causing the soul to leave the body, disassociate, so that the body and the central nervous system could be used for their gains. Okay. And it depends on programming. And this isn't just woo-woo here. The patent for the television is television programming. I mean, they're telling us what to think. If you ever, in an awakened state, read a college textbook, you could see the programming. Okay. So what we're trying to do by understanding this is not get upset about it, but just to understand how important understanding that is. So think about this. When we're 3 and we're caught stealing cookies out of the cookie jar, we disassociate right away. Because why? Guilt and shame, which are the lowest levels of consciousness. So guilt and shame will cause us to leave our body because we don't want to face. And so think about that with a 3-year-old. We don't want to face our guilt of taking a cookie. So we have patterns now of guilt and shame where we disassociate. And the number one way that we can recognize we're doing that is we project that, no, I didn't take this cookie, my sister did, right? But all that is just creating patterns. Remember I talked about with the MK Ultra thing is that they use trigger words to get us into those guilt and shame areas, but then they gave us a pattern, right, of what to do. And so it's the CIA that's doing this. So obviously they were doing it to control consciousness, right? And to keep us in line like little soldiers, like modern day slavery, right? And so that example is really cool because if you understand, if we're triggered into guilt and shame, our body tends to go in autopilot, right? And then up a couple of octaves from that is grief. I can do it with a broken heart. So our autonomous nervous system is just pushing through. That's what it is taught to do, right? And so what happens is the soul doesn't want to live in a body that's in all that muck. And so it just disassociates, and we talk about that a lot on this channel. And so what happens is there's a gap between our true self and the truth versus the body and the mind ego patterns that we are playing out when we're triggered. So winding this all together, weaving it into the perfect tapestry of understanding, we can understand one thing. What's that one thing? That one thing is we can't let ourselves continue on this pattern of we're triggered and then we react and do the same thing over and over again. That's the part where it's like, no, I'm not going to do it with a broken heart. I'm going to cultivate a better feeling, which would require us to stay in our body, not project that somebody's making us feel this way. That's a huge one that we're all programmed with. And it's hard to understand because when I tell people that, when I coach them, I'm not indoctrinated into anything. You don't even know. That's why the jail is, around you, but you don't even see it because you're being boxed into certain ways of doing things that are not beneficial for you. And now there's such a normalcy to it because we're all doing these things that to look at it in a different way, which is what we do on this channel, so that you can start to get out of that box. And so let's just say if we're in those lower emotions, we are disassociating from truth, from understanding, from especially love for ourselves. When we go into guilt and shame, like, as a kid, you stole the cookie. Yeah, mommy, I did. I'm sorry. I love myself too much to lie, project, blame, all those things. But we get into these patterns, right? And that's because we have parents that are, making us feel guilt and shame because they don't like their own guilt and shame. So they're projecting it, which is a whole nother topic. But I want you to just understand that we have been in these patterns for a very long time, and so our life can't change until we recognize this. So I want to talk about another story that'll help you understand this. Okay, so what I really realized when it came to healthy boundaries, because I knew for a long time that healthy boundaries had nothing to do with articulating to somebody how I'm not going to let them do these things to me. It had everything to do with my energy. It meant that I wasn't going to let the environment dictate how I feel. I was going to have a boundary, an energetic boundary that kept me from feeling all these things going on around me. So that leads me to my story about dysregulation. So what the main deepest pattern is that our body gets into our central nervous system, that we disassociate from our body because we don't like this pattern that we're doing. So our soul can't be embodied and feel good because our soul is a very high frequency, and our body at this point is in guilt and shame, which is the lowest, right? So I don't mean to laugh about it, but it's kind of comical what I've done. So point being that you stole the cookie and I feel dysregulated. So let's look at that. Love is our inherent nature. Peace, joy, all of those things, those higher dimensional things that we want to embody in our body, but we can't because we can't even get in there because it's so dense in hell, so to speak. And so when somebody makes me feel guilt and shame, right, I'm getting dysregulated. So that means I'm not at my high natural state. I'm feeling angst and horrible in my body. So we'll call that dysregulated. So we get into a pattern of seeking, because the dysregulation came from outside of ourselves. We get in a pattern of looking for something outside of ourselves to regulate it. So that's the main pattern that trauma is giving us. Trauma external, we got to find something external to fix it. Okay, and this is what I believe the 8th house is about. Very different than what we're taught. But actually all the water signs have elements of this, but Scorpio 8th house, this is deep stuff that we are sharing energy, and then we inherit energy patterns of doing this. So my point is if you can recognize what you're using outside yourself to feel regulated, you can start telling yourself, I don't want to use that. Because if you're like me, you like to use your mind to figure things out and then get to the energy of it, right? And so let me make an example even deeper about being dysregulated and what I did, because my biggest dysregulation was men and rejection. So if I was texting a dude, minding my business from the world, focused on this phone, feeling good, this is deep in my awakening, I realized that if I'm dysregulated, I shouldn't reach out to people, because then I'm just going to trigger them, and then we're going to be... So I got myself good. I'm in my phone. I'm texting, hey, how are you? No response. I'm like, no, don't trip. Just stay good. Focus somewhere else. So I finally got to a point where I could focus somewhere else, because that's a huge contender. And the reason we stay dysregulated is because we can't even move our focus. And I talk about that a lot. But for this sake, we're going to understand dysregulation is, okay, now I'm starting to feel it. Okay. I'm starting to get triggered inside, dysregulated. And so then what's the first thing I do? I disassociate from the truth. The truth is, I do this too. If I'm busy, I don't respond, or it's not rejection, right? But our body is feeling rejected and dysregulated. And so what do we do? And this is the part that you can start to see your pattern of what you're using externally to feel better. And most of the time, it's jab the freak out. You go and feel my wrath, and you ain't going to do me wrong and bogus anymore, right? Which is such a lie, because all you're doing is creating more problems. But it would make me feel more regulated. Why? Because rejection, shame, all those things are real low. Anger is moving up the scale. So we're moving up the scale by doing something very regulating externally that's really not helping us. So if we could just move into anger inside of ourselves without doing something externally to feel regulated, then we would learn to self-regulate. And that's the goal, because that's how we get back in our body. So, and see, we're projecting out, which is the same as disassociation. We're not doing the internal work. And so I hope this logic can help you understand that that's what we're doing. So let's make some more examples of how we use the external to regulate, and how we can use our own internal intelligence to regulate, because that's the key. Okay, so we talked about love. That's pretty much it with men and women. But let's talk about money. And that's a huge dysregulation. And so again, 8th house stuff, sex, money, inheritance, all these things, right? And, it's really, the money thing is I caught it by being a bean counter. So this is what I would do. If I was triggered about a bill that came in and I didn't have the money to pay it, I would get dysregulated with guilt, shame, anger, whatever those lower things are, and I could feel it in my body. And so what my usual thing was, and I want you to keep in mind, the brain is not part of your soul, it's part of your body. So what my brain would start to loop is bean counting would make me feel regulated. But it was keeping me small, because if I'm saying to myself, okay, I'll just work 2 extra hours every night doing this thing, I can make $32 a night, and then I'll have this and that and that. You're staying a very low pattern, because the currency of abundance comes from love. So I'm staying in this analytical type place, which is kind of in the middle, but either way, I'm using that bean counting to regulate myself, right? But it's actually sabotaging my life, because all the external regulation stuff regulatory stuff we do is self-sabotage, period. It's very limited. It's something we probably created when we were very young to feel safe and in control, but then we're not allowing a bigger reality to unfold for us. We're looping this. So every time I would get stressed about money, I would do the same external regulation thing, which is usually a bunch of bullshit that gives me very little gain, because love is the true abundance, right? So I hope that one helps you. Let's think of another one here. So let's talk about our weight. Okay, so this is one of the hardest ones. I studied Course in Miracles for a lot of years, and Marianne Williamson had wrote a book about weight loss based in the Course in Miracles, and I feel like this is what she was kind of trying to say, and so we're gonna say it this way. When I feel uncomfortable in my body because a man is looking at it, okay, I get that feeling of dysregulation, right? And then my body, I'm leaving my body, making up illusions or doing whatever that is I do with my, regulation tools that are self-sabotaging. And so that one would be mainly not loving myself now. I would say, I'm going to do this in the future. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to join Weight Watchers. I'm going to do these things, right? And then I would start to feel better, but I wasn't really truly healing the deeper thing. So I'm going to keep repeating this pattern of dysregulation and then using something external to make me feel better. But it's all self-sabotage because I'm never actually getting to the true core root and letting my soul come back into my body and heal it. Because when we don't have that high energy in our body, that creates disease, and obesity is a disease, right? And so the real way to regulate would be to be like, I accept my body deeply just as it is, until you can start having that auto, your central nervous system it's automatic. This is studying in science. So if you can reprogram it, that's what we're really talking about. But we have to get the higher frequencies in our body, higher self in our body again, to be able to do that. And so what is it? It's love. It's the highest frequency. So I love myself just like this. And so when I finally got that, I would do ridiculous stuff. I would go on Facebook and post, I love every single fat roll, boobs and chins. That's all I am, just like ridiculous stuff, just to kind of get myself into acceptance of who I am. Self-love, right? Generating within yourself self-love. That's what that means. Not needing something externally to regulate yourself to get to love. So saying I'm going to go to the gym to make myself feel better about myself, but never doing it, is just creating more guilt and shame and more disassociation. Okay. So I hope those stories really help you. So let's just wrap this up and help it really drive home what you can do now to help this process of embodiment of your higher self, your higher frequency self-love, without needing anything external to fix you. So to wrap this up, let's go back into that self-love concept and what I'm talking about being dysregulated. So what we can really say in a nutshell is, I feel anything but love inside myself. My state of being is anything but love. My state of being is guilt right now. My state of being is shame. My state of being is anger, right? Anything that's lower than love, which is our inherent nature, which the reason all those other things feel so bad is because we're not being true in love. And so self-love doesn't mean looking in the mirror and saying things, yeah, that can be helpful. But remember, that's an external regulation too. We want to be able to cultivate that feeling inside ourselves. So it's like self-soothing, self. Everything is regulating yourself. So we do have to use our mind, and I talked about this in other videos. Like my first energy teacher said, just cultivate it within yourself, just shift it, try to get out of logic, sit with the emotion and learn to shift it, the art of alchemy, right? But me being dominant air, I have a hard time with that. I need logic first, and then I'll do the internal work. So either way, mind and emotions are the same thing. Thought forms are energy too. So what you can do is just start to remind yourself, or like I said with the, self-love and the weight thing, it's just, fuck it. I can love myself just as I am right now. I'm not projecting into the future or regulating from something I could do like a pipe dream. I'm literally saying I'm perfect right freaking now. And if you can get this click right here, self-love is going to heal all of it. All of it. So I hope this video helps you understand we're not using the external to dictate how we feel. We're not going to use the external to regulate ourselves into feeling better. We are going to love, self-love, generate love within ourselves with using our mind, or just learning to cultivate our emotions. We are on it. I'm not going to do shit with a broken heart. We got this. All right. So in the show notes, you will find the link to my website to get a personalized report that will tell you about the things that are causing this. It's about patterns, pattern recognition. That's my language. So if you need that report, go ahead and click the link. And until next time, take care.